Good evening, Munchkins. We're back. Dad is back to do a little bit more ranting. As always, if you like what you hear, please share this with a friend. The share button's at the bottom of the rant. If you love what you hear, hit the subscribe button at the bottom of this rant. The subscriptions are free, and they help me to do a lot more of these. All right, let's rant. Here's a quote from old Dad. Religion sets the culture. Culture sets the behavior. Behavior sets the results. That's Dad, circa 2026. Hey, I was watching a podcast this morning on how to fix America's problems. As usual, the discussion centered around the need for higher education as a solution to our country's problems. Now, the evidence to support the need for more higher education, the podcasters provided the following statistics on Americans over 25 years of age who have a college degree as of 2025. So again, this is the percentages of Americans who have a college degree that are over 25 years of age. So for blacks, 27.6%. Hispanics, 29%. The national average was 37.7%. For whites, 41.8%. And for Asians, 59.3% of them have a college degree. Now, before moving forward with this rant, it'll be useful to communicate to you the doctrinal thinking processes of the intellectual elites. And that thinking kind of goes something like this. The first premise is the most important national problem to be solved is the problem of material wealth. The second premise is that blacks and Hispanics underperform on material wealth relative to whites and Asians. The third premise, the reason that blacks and Hispanics underperform on material wealth is because not enough of them possess college degrees, which leads to the fourth premise, therefore, we need to increase the percentage of blacks and Hispanics who possess a college degree. Then they'll have more material wealth. Now, of course, you know that Dad has got some problems with that type of thinking. So given all of that background, let me just hop into the rant itself. Since intellectuals control the mass media, they also control the national narrative. And the national narrative is that the most important good is the ability to acquire stuff or material wealth. Thomas Jefferson stated in the Declaration of Independence that we had a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Modern culture equates the pursuit of happiness with the pursuit of stuff, which wasn't what Jefferson intended, and we'll come back to that at the end of this rant. The problem with that type of thinking is that it assumes that our country's problems all come from a lack of stuff and income inequality among the citizens. More importantly, this thinking presumes that the raison d'etre of human existence is the making of money. I contend that premise number one is wrong. The most important national problem that we face has nothing to do with wealth. The most important problem we face is the lack of adherence to the moral code. The degree to which we adhere to the moral code will dictate the degree of national wealth we enjoy. In the opinion of Dad, the elites have placed the proverbial cart before the horse. Wealth flows from morality. Morality first, wealth second. Now, Dad has just made a flat assertion. House rules, of course, are that flat assertions must be supported by evidence. I promise to get to that evidence. But before getting to that evidence, I must first address the assertion that higher education is the answer to the country's problems, because I don't think so. When I first saw the statistics I gave you at the beginning of this rant, I couldn't believe my eyes. It blows my mind that 37% of all Americans over the age of 25 now hold a college degree. By comparison, in 1960, so 66 years ago, only 8% of Americans had a college degree. In 1980, about 14% of Americans held a college degree. So are we to believe that there's been a nearly 400% increase in the number of Americans who hold a college degree since 1960? Kiddos, I certainly don't believe that this is true. Or put another way, I do believe that it's true, but I believe that the quality of the degree granted in 1960 is substantially degraded from the quality of the degree issued today. The anecdotal evidence to support my belief is overwhelming. Let me provide you some of that evidence. My first piece of evidence. High schools no longer test for proficiency. Many colleges no longer perform SAT tests as part of their admission process. They rely on the grades that are earned in high school to set up a standard for admission. High school and college grade inflation is rampant because parents today can't handle their kids being held to a standard. Unless, of course, the evaluation supports their belief that their kid is perfect. So today's high school GPAs are virtually meaningless as a tool to measure academic performance. If colleges were serious about the quality of the product they are offering, they would require that all students take a standardized test as a freshman and take that same standardized test at the end of their senior year. This would provide invaluable information to parents, students, and employers. Those stakeholders would learn a number of things. Let me walk you through a couple of them. First, they learn the quality and therefore the true value of the degree. The second thing they would learn is the quality and therefore the value of the university itself. So are they growing students in knowledge? Did the university move the needle? Are students becoming more knowledgeable during their time spent at the university? Do they know more at the end of the 4 years than they knew at the beginning of the 4 years? And third one, how hireable is the product of student? And finally, how does the university compare to other universities on the one metric that matters most, knowledge gained over 4 years? High schools and colleges will never volunteer to do this without market pressure to do so. Human nature seeks to avoid accountability. Saints seek accountability. Savages seek exculpation. Sadly, the educational system is filled with savages. Saints are in short supply. Number 2, man on the street interviews demonstrate astonishing levels of ignorance, nay, stupidity, with college graduates and students. Jay Leno and a bunch of other hosts have conducted man-on-the-street interviews over the years with students from prestigious colleges, and the results of these interviews are simply jaw-dropping, as well as funny. College students today don't know the capital city of the United States, the capital city of their home states, the purpose of the Declaration of Independence, or the name of the first president. Students can't give the approximate dates of the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, or World War II. Students don't know the year that the War of 1812 was fought. How many colonies were in the original 13 colonies? Yikes. Or how many stars are on the American flag? When we lived in Los Angeles, I knew a lawyer, now this is a lawyer, mind you, who didn't know that Mexico bordered California to the south or that Oregon bordered California to the north. And kiddos, this was a lawyer. This person held an actual degree in doctor of jurisprudence. I'm not making this up. Of course, basic algebra is definitely a bridge too far. Here's some of the questions, basic questions, that they would ask in these man-on-the-street interviews. If you drive a car for 1 hour at 60 miles per hour, how far will you have traveled? College students can't answer that question. How many inches are in a foot? College students cannot answer that basic question. How many quarts make a gallon? Again, college students can't answer that basic computational question. And remember, these are university students or graduates of universities. A lot of times these interviews were taking place on the campuses of the university. So it's not like this is old knowledge. This stuff should have been fresh, and they don't know it. Third one, tests from the past demonstrated how far the quality of education has fallen. To demonstrate how far education has fallen, check out these math questions from the 8th grade final exam in Salinas, Kansas in 1895. Now note, this is just the math portion of the exam. This doesn't include the geography, grammar, or the history portions of the exam. And each of those portions was an hour long. Now this is 8th grade final exam questions, Salinas, Kansas, 1895. I'm only going to show you a few of these questions. You can read the rest in the rant. So, a wagon box is 2 feet deep, 10 feet long, and 3 feet wide. How many bushels of wheat will it hold? Find the cost of 6,720 pounds of coal at $6 per ton. Find the interest of $512.60 for 8 months and 18 days at 7%. What is the cost of 40 boards 12 inches wide and 16 feet long at 20 cents per inch? Write a bank check, a promissory note, and a receipt. Now, those are just a few of the questions that were asked in that exam from over 100 years ago. Today's college graduates can answer the questions that we were asking 8th graders 100 years ago. And remember, that education in 1890 cost virtually nothing. Today, a college graduate leaves the university with upwards of $100,000 in debt, and most of them can't spell cat if you spotted them the C and the T. Your mom and I were educated in the 60s and 70s. Everyone knew how many inches were in a foot, how many feet make a yard, how many quarts make a gallon. Everyone knew the approximate dates of the Civil War, World War I, and World War II. Everyone was familiar with Plessy versus Ferguson, Brown versus the Board of Education, and the Scopes monkey trial. Your mom had to memorize the Gettysburg Address in the 6th grade. I had to memorize the preamble to the U.S. Constitution in the 6th grade. Kids today are graduating college, $100,000 in the hole, and they don't know any of this stuff. This is stuff that a 6th grader knew a generation ago. The fourth thing I wanted to point out was I wonder what percentage of these degrees that are issued are in subjects that are real subjects. I mean subjects that actually provide the student with a marketable skill. I submit to you that any degree that ends in the word studies or ends with the letters ology, O-L-O-G-Y, with the exception being biology, are nonsense degrees, and the return on dollars invested make them worse than a waste of time for the student. Degrees in ethnic studies, gender studies, sociology, or psychology provide the student with no marketing skills upon graduation. Humanities degrees fall into this bucket as well, unless the person has a PhD, and the boatload of debt required to acquire the PhD. My instinct tells me that 50% of the degrees issued today are in fields where at the bachelor's degree level, the student has acquired no marketing skills, but they have acquired a boatload of debt. The student would have been better served by going directly into the workforce immediately following high school and acquired his education the old-fashioned way, by being taught the skill by their employer. By so doing, the student avoids the $100,000 in college debt trap and spends 4 years that he would have been in college actually earning money and acquiring a marketable skill. Imagine that. If my guess that 50% of the degrees issued today are fake degrees, then the percentage of Americans with a true college degree falls from 37% to 18%. If we change the language from college degree to marketable college degree, then the percentage of Americans with a marketable college degree is probably around 18%. That percentage is probably accurate. I submit to you that about 18% of the population holds a marketable degree. Everyone else with a college degree really holds a fake college degree to go along with their very real college debt. And the last one I'll point out is colleges have become camp commie. The evidence that this is the case parades across our TV screens in the form of protests every day. Students burn flags, tear down iconic American statues, and harass Jewish students. Professors promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, Black Lives Matter, and critical race theory. Professors are overwhelmingly members of the Democratic Party on the order of about 90%. Professors are overwhelmingly atheists, agnostics, and most importantly, radical evangelists for their religious worldview of Marxism. Students enter the university with no debt, loving their parents, their church, and their country. They leave the universities $100,000 in the hole, hating their parents, their church, and their country. And if they're white, it looks increasingly like they learn to hate themselves as well. If I'm lying, I'm dying. So, I think old dad has demonstrated that increasing the percentage of people with college degrees will decrease, not increase wealth. Let's circle back to the proposition of the intellectual elite that the lack of stuff is the principal problem the nation faces. I submit to you that wealth is not the problem. We don't have a money problem, we have a morality problem. Our country's problems do not flow from a lack of income or income inequality. I also submit to you that the most important thing in this life is not the making of money. Our nation's problems do not stem from a lack of money. Our society is richer than it's ever been. It's the wealthiest society in human history, and second place isn't even close. Over 75% of the world's GDP is generated by the United States of America, a country that houses only 4% of the world's population, that produces 25% of the world's GDP. The poorest American has a quality of life that Cleopatra could only dream of. We are rich. Money ain't the problem. On a personal level, wealth alone does not appear to solve problems. Hollywood is filled with stars who have personal wealth that would have made King Midas blush, yet their personal lives are an absolute train wreck. Famous athletes, politicians, and business leaders lead lives that would make them stars on the Maury Povich, Jerry Springer, or Morton Downey Jr. shows. More often than not, their lives end in Shakespearean levels of tragedy. The lives of O.J. Simpson, Elvis Presley, Bill Cosby, Elizabeth Taylor, Aaron Hernandez, Ike Turner, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Prince, Janis Joplin, River Phoenix, and my personal favorite, John Belushi, were all lost to drugs, crime, radical immorality, or some lethal combination of that toxic mix. All of them were wealthy beyond belief. None of them led a personal life that anyone would want to emulate. Money did not solve their problems. All of them die young or are finishing their lives in prison. Sports fans, it is not about the money. It is about the morality. Since 1960, church attendance has fallen. As church attendance has fallen, suicide, crime, illegitimacy, and divorce have all skyrocketed. As we fail to adhere to commandments 1 through 3, which inform us on how we ought to conduct our relationship with God, we fail to meet our obligations to each of the other commandments as set forth in commandments 4 through 10, which is how we ought to treat each other. When we worship idols like money, take the Lord's name in vain, and fail to keep the Sabbath, we wind up not honoring our mother and father, committing adultery, lying, stealing, and coveting our neighbor's stuff. These behaviors diminish wealth. Prisons are filled with men who were deprived of a dad growing up due to adultery. Society must pay not only to house them while they're in prison, but also the cost to process them in the security system to protect society when they get released. Single motherhood is the fastest way to poverty, and inevitably the taxpayer will foot the bill for these women and their children. People who have wealth will be comfortable operating outside the moral code, and they will lie, cheat, and steal from their fellow man to increase their wealth, which of course means increasing the cost of business and increases the pressure on the judicial system. Morality reduces costs and increases efficiency. In a moral family, parents are more likely to raise children who will not grow up to become criminals. Children who are more likely to look after their elderly parents and not leave them destitute and at the mercy of the state. Business people will not lie, cheat, and steal, thereby reducing the need for lawyers who drive up the cost of business. Religion sets the culture sets the behavior sets the results. Education is but a tool. Wealth is but a tool. Our national goal should not be to create more wealth. Our national goal should be to increase the morality of the average citizen. If we do that, then increased wealth will follow. This brings me to Thomas Jefferson, the Declaration of Independence. The verbiage, the pursuit of happiness, meant something to the 18th century ear that is different from what it means to the 21st century ear. When he wrote that phrase, the pursuit of happiness, that meant back then the pursuit of virtue. That's an entirely different meaning that we assign to that phrase today. We equate wealth with happiness. As demonstrated earlier, wealth clearly doesn't lead directly to happiness. Virtue is a much better goal. If our society pursues virtue, we will secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity, as the founders intended, as evidenced by the language in the preamble to the U.S. Constitution set forth by Thomas Jefferson. Sports fans, thank you for your attention. Peace out. Ciao.